Before we get started with this video, I want to say thank you for all the people who got us to 3,000 subscribers. We just passed the 3,000 subscriber mark over this past weekend, and to celebrate that, I have 3 of these Lord of the Rings starter kits I would love to give away. Leave a comment on this video. I will contact you, let you know what you need to do to claim one of these 3. This is good for the US only. I do need to keep my shipping costs under control. Thank you very much. Enjoy the show. Welcome back to Who Is on Magic Untapped as we take a look at the origins and backstories of characters from across the Magic the Gathering multiverse. I am Barry White. In this episode, we zero in on one whom, despite being the main character in the very first Magic the Gathering novel, Magic the Gathering Arena, back in 1994, didn't actually appear in card form until 2001 with the set Modern Horizons 2. Let's take a look at Garth One-Eye.
Who is it? Who is this?
Who is it?
Who is this?
Who is it?
A wandering wizard arrives in Estark, a brutal city where the populace's favorite pastime is the watching and wagering upon brutal battles, both officially in the arena and unofficially out in the streets. This wizard, named Garth, befriends an old man named Hammond, who leads Estark's brotherhood of pickpockets and other such scoundrels. Garth then gets roped into a street fight, one that he easily wins. So impressed were the spectators that they gave him a nickname, One-Eye, as the mage obviously had lost one of his eyes at some point in the past. Before we dive any deeper though, it should be pointed out that Estark hosts an annual tournament at its arena called the Festival of Estark, headed by the arena's Grandmaster, Zeril. While, in the past, this festival was a means for the city's 5 houses to display their skills against one another, things have changed over the past couple of decades thanks to the fall of one of the city's strongest houses, the House of Ortale. Run in the background by a cruel planeswalker named Cthulhu, the festival now features Estark's 4 remaining houses fighting in bloody, often fatal battles, with the festival's ultimate victor joining Cthulhu on an interplanar trip, though the winner never manages to make it back home from the trip for some reason. Now getting back to Garth, he witnesses another informal battle on the city's streets. A Banalish warrior comes up the victor despite her opponent fighting dirty. Immediately after the battle, a spectator quickly moves in on her, intent on stabbing her from behind. Garth intervenes, saving the woman's life. Grateful, she introduces herself as Noreen, and explains to Garth that she has entered the city to earn a reputation as a hero so that she might escape the limits of Benalia's caste system. But before the two can get much more acquainted, Hammond, more or less, runs her off. As time passes, more duels continue to erupt throughout the city, as they had been for years. And during this time, Garth found himself joining one of Estark's houses and fighting on their behalf, only to eventually leave it to join another. In the end, Garth manages only to stir up discord amongst Estark's populace. Now considered an undesirable and suspicious, Garth is captured and tortured by Grandmaster Zeril, whom wishes to know exactly what Garth is up to. Thankfully for Garth, he's made some friends in his time in the city, and he is freed by not just Hammond, but also Noreen and Varena, a fighter whose respect he had earned while dueling for one of Estark's houses. Not too long after this, the time for the Festival of Estark arrives. As is customary, each of the city's 4 remaining houses sends their representative to the arena. Garth, too, ventures there, and enters as the long-lost survivor of the fallen 5th house. It is now revealed just how Garth One-Eye, whose real identity is Galen, son of Kulinarn, lost his eye. It was 20 years prior, during an incident that would become known as the Night of Fire, when Cthulhu led a massacre against the House of Ortale. Grandmaster Zeril, whom is a servant of the cruel planeswalker, gouged a young Galen's eye out as means of tormenting his father, the leader of House Ortale. His eye bleeding, Galen ran into the house mansion, which had been set ablaze, supposedly killing everyone within it. This news was not exactly well received by the arena Grandmaster, nor the tournament's patron, Cthulhu, and Garth is marked for death. But, as mentioned before, Garth has made a few friends in Estark, and Noreen leads an unruly mob into the arena in aid of the One-Eyed Wizard. In part to quell the mob's bloodlust and as a means to kill Garth while maintaining some semblance of order, Grandmaster Zeril and Planeswalker Cthulhu announced that every match of the festival will be to the death, and that anyone who opposes this sudden rule change will be put to immediate death for their dissent. This, of course, puts an end to the chaos, and the tournament is allowed to continue. One by one, each house's champion is felled by another until, in the final match of the tournament, Garth finds himself paired against his friend, Verena. She makes it clear to him that she is honor-bound to follow the rules of the arena and, as such, they must fight to the death. It's a fight that Garth would win as he lays the killing blow against Verena. Garth, now the champion of the festival, is whisked away by Cthulhu, whom, once away from the crowds, attempts to kill him. Unsuccessfully so, one might add. Which leads Cthulhu to inform Garth that planeswalkers are constantly in a struggle to be more powerful than the next, and that his killing and absorbing the power of other mages is justified. Garth, of course, disagrees with the planeswalker's logic, and seriously wounds him in revenge for the pain he has caused him and his family some 20 years ago, as well as in the time since. This act of vengeance and redemption causes Garth's ascension into becoming a planeswalker himself, and he leaves Cthulhu a bleeding mess. Back at the arena, chaos erupts. Each of Estark's 4 remaining houses launch an offensive against Grandmaster Zeril. The Grandmaster wastes no time in eliminating them all. He does the same with the countless mobs of Estark citizens who have also turned against him. Just as he's about to slay Noreen and Hammond, Garth returns and stabs Zeril in the chest with a dagger, killing him. After the battle, Noreen runs up to and embraces Garth. The two then vanish together from the city. A life of battle and bloodshed behind them, the two retire to the countryside and have a child, whom they name Hammond after their old friend in Estark. However, Garth would find the idle life a restless one. Despite his promise to never leave, he eventually could not help himself as he began to wander the plains. And it's during one of these ventures away that Noreen and Hammond were abducted. It turns out that Noreen, like Garth, was using an assumed name while in Estark. Her real name is Raquel, and she and her son were taken to Benalia City by Sabrium, the man Raquel had refused to marry before her disappearance from Benalia. In the time of her absence, Sabrium had gone up in the world and became the speaker of the ruling caste. He accuses her of high treason for abandoning Benalia. Rather than killing her, though, Hammond is held hostage and she is ordered to assassinate the forest folk Gull and Greensleeves, who had an army dangerously close to Benalish borders. She succeeds in infiltrating their army, but fails at killing either as her deadline passes. She then tries to kill herself, but Gull stops her. She then confesses everything to him, and he and Greensleeves decide to help her and rescue Hammond. The forest folks' camp is ambushed during the night, and Raquel once again taken prisoner and back to Benalia City. Gull and a few others follow not too far behind and get there just in time to save Raquel from torture. They also rescue Hammond, killing Sabrium in the process before ultimately returning to the Whispering Woods, Gull and Greensleeves' homeland. It's about this time that Garth returns to the scene. He had returned home to find his wife and child missing, and was on the warpath searching for their kidnappers. Assuming Gull and Greensleeves to be the culprits, he attacks them. After a brief scuffle, Raquel calms him down and confesses to him her past life and the events since the abduction. Now seeing his family through new eyes, Garth vows to never again use magic and, instead, focus his energy on caring for his wife and son, and tending to their vineyard back home.
Garth then shares his knowledge of the multiverse with the druid Greensleeves before departing home with his wife and son, presumably to spend a life of peace from then on. Thank you very much for watching this episode of Who Is. If you like videos like this, please hit that subscribe and like button. Let people know about these things. I think they're pretty cool. Also, Magic the Gathering has a tip jar. It's on Patreon. If you want to support us, toss a buck in there. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much.